Hello there, everybody. Anybody, everybody, anyone there? Hello, hello, hello. Is anybody at home? I'll just wait until we see some people are beginning to appear, and until the first person says who does appear that they can hear me, because I'm not even sure if I can be heard or not. And so we're going to see, first of all, if that's working. Can anybody hear me, first of all? This new YouTube webcam thing, which is the way to go live on YouTube these days, is not always functional. Can you hear me, Sneha Rajan? Can you hear me? Yeah? Can somebody just type in the window and say, we can hear you or we can't hear you? Yes, you can hear me. Excellent. Good. You know why? Because there should be a little green bar at the bottom of my screen that says you can hear me, but it's blank. So for all I know, I could just be talking to nobody, but it's good to let me know that you can hear me. So we are waiting for some more people to get here before we go too into depth with some of the special things that I want to talk about today. So in the meantime, if anybody has any general astrological questions, so what do I mean by that? Those of you who've been here before, you kind of know where I'm at with that. I'm not here to answer predictive questions for you, because that's not really the best way to approach astrology in a live forum based on one or two factors in your horoscope, right? It's better to have the full horoscope and to be able to go into depth with it, etc. So, but if you have general astrological questions about general concepts in astrology, go right ahead and just talk right on about it. So I'll wait until somebody asks the first real question, and I'll hold off for my special announcement until I see maybe 12 people here, right? But until then, hey, you can all ask questions if you really, really want to. And if you don't ask questions, it's going to be really, really quiet today, right? So if you have any general astrological questions, please let me know. So hello to everybody who's saying hello. Please feel free to ask any general astrological questions you may or may not have. I'm going to talk here in just a little bit about Rahu and Ketu and the nakshatras. Divorce in a chart. I think what you're wanting to say is, how do you see divorce in a chart, right? So there's not a lot of times people like to see special planetary combinations like, oh, Jupiter with this, that, or the other thing, or Jupiter and Saturn together will always do that. It doesn't always work that way. Generally, you're looking for planets that share either a 7th and 6th, 8th, or 12th agenda, or a 9th and a 6th, 8th, or 12th agenda. And you're wanting to see those both in the Rashi chart and equally in the navamsa chart before you'd feel comfortable making that particular prediction. But quite often people think that there's some magic formula where you can predict things, because I know everybody really likes to rely on yogas. And yogas can work, but they work like signposts that point you in a certain direction. They're not meant to necessarily yield the end result. Okay, so let's see what else we've got going on here. Okay, so somebody's asking a question. What is the worst place of Rahu in a chart and in a sign? It's not necessarily what sign it's in, right? It's more a thing of if Rahu's dispositor is debilitated, or if Rahu's dispositor is debilitated and perhaps Rahu's placed in the 8th, that can be really difficult. And if you add on top of that, perhaps Rahu conjuncting the moon, that can equally be difficult. But all these things have to be qualified by multiple factors, like the avastas, especially the Baladi avastas and Jagradati avastas. And for those, you have to take the Baladi avasta and Jagradati avasta of the planet that's dispositing Rahu or Ketu. Okay? Sorry, somebody just beeped me on my computer, so I have to close down Zoom so that I don't get beeped in here in a moment. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. Okay. Well, main indications of a Jupiter-Ketu conjunction in a natal chart is and it would be the same transit. You'll probably see this globally. As a matter of fact, I've been picking up on this with a lot of people, is the concept of attachment to belief systems, right? Relying on belief systems, relying on faith in a belief system to get you through, which can sometimes be positive, but occasionally our horizons are meant to expand a bit, and so it doesn't always work. I'm going to take one more question, I think, and then I'm going to go into my special announcements here. Okay. Okay, so just rules of the roads here. Rules of the road here, okay? If you're coming on here and you're going, my Rahu is in the 4th house, and I'm not trying to call you out, so please, I'm just trying to kind of explain. If you come on here and you ask things like, my Rahu is in the 4th house and Ketu in the 10th house with Sun, Mercury, Mars, Saturn conjunction, I'm not going to predict your chart for you. That's not what I'm here to do today, just so everybody knows. I'm here to answer general astrological questions that people might have, like I've been doing like so far, right? So people are asking Mercury retrograde questions. Here's the situation. This coming Monday, right, at 7 p.m. London time, I'm going to be hosting what is called a group session. Now, what these are is they're opportunities for a lot of people to come join a group session, share with me their horoscope, anonymous if desired, so that nobody else is able to see your horoscope. I can just anonymize your name. And what I'll be doing is taking a look at the upcoming Mercury retrograde transit in association with your particular horoscope. Okay, so this particular Mercury retrograde period is going to be transiting 3 different nakshatras. It's going to station retrograde in Anuradha, and then retrograde back through Vishaka nakshatra and into Swati nakshatra. And what that's likely going to do is place each person in a particular, well, mental and emotional state where they're gaining perspective or distance from something long enough to re-examine their commitment to it, and then anything that needs to be shaken off or broken free of in association with that connection, whether it's a connection to a thing or to a person, then when Mercury begins to regain that momentum in station direct, then they'll be gaining the momentum with which to do that particular thing. But obviously, this is going to impact each person differently in relation to their own particular horoscope, which is why I'm mentioning the group session. So everybody who joins the group session, I take a look at this transit in relation to your own particular horoscope. And registration for this group transit is only $59 at the link I'm going to type into the chat window next. So if you want to join, that's Monday, 7 p.m. London time at the link I just typed into the window. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here in the chat window. So I'm not going to go too deeply into Mercury retrograde, right? Because I'm doing a Mercury retrograde thing on Monday. Okay. So just so people know, and here's the thing, right? I know a lot of times people perhaps have gone to astrologers, and astrologers will spout off things for you about your own horoscope. Here's my philosophy on that. If you do that, you're giving the person just like incomplete information about their horoscope, and you're really kind of relying on predictions that can maybe be like, 50-50 accurate rather than much more accurate. And that's why I don't really like when people ask me questions like, the 7th house lord and the ascendant lord combust in the 11th house, what will be the effect? The effect is going to be different, really, based on the well-being of those planets otherwise, like their avastas. Because you see, if a planet is like Yuva or Kumara, it can be combust and still be productive, right? If a planet, however, is like Mrita or Vritta, and let's say it's in an enemy's house and it's combust, it's going to be a lot more difficult. So planets, when they're with the sun, generally are in a state that's called Kshobita, which means frustrated, right? And they feel like they're being sacrificed for the well-being of the sun. So the 7th house lord, it would make it feel like yourself and your relationships are being sacrificed for whatever houses the sun rules in your chart, whatever house you have in Leo. That's about as clear of information as I can give you without looking at your entire horoscope, because I don't want to give you an inaccurate assessment. Okay? So, other things I wanted to talk to people about before I go further into some of the questions people have placed here. I'm starting a new course on Rahu and Ketu. Some of you may have seen this already, and this course starts on the 19th of January, but it's presently open for an early registration discount of 10% off the course registration fee, and that discount is applicable regardless of whether you register by semester or register by payment in full. And the discount is 10%, as I said, off the course registration fee at the link I'm going to type into the chat window here. You need to use the following discount code nodal nakshatra, or NODALNAK in all uppercase letters. And what this is this is a webinar course just on Rahu and Ketu through the nakshatras. Okay? And some of the things that we're going to be going over in this particular course and that I'm really excited about is the fact that, well, here's one of the things, the fact that if you have, for instance, Ketu in Ashwini nakshatra, and Ketu is in the first or the second pada of Ashwini, then Rahu is going to be in Chitra nakshatra. So that's going to be one tonality. But if Ketu is in the third or the fourth pada of Ashwini, then Rahu is going to be in Swati nakshatra, right? And so there's some really interesting things that begin to happen in association with the nodal placements, where Rahu's placement is going to have some different tonalities, while Ketu will stay within the same nakshatra, if you follow. And so so I'll give you a for instance, right? I'm getting all tongue twisted. And this happens when I talk about nakshatras. I get all excited, right? So I'll explain to you. Let's go a little more into depth with that concept. If you understand that Ashwini nakshatra can be very dharma driven, it's connected with the Ashwins who are really swift to want to help a situation. Well, if Rahu's in Chitra nakshatra, that level of being driven by a sense of ethics with which to attain that is going to be deepened, right? So it may put the person through a re-examination of their ethics and a re-examination of their beliefs and what's right or what's wrong. Then, for instance, if that person instead had Rahu in Swati nakshatra, then they're going to be driven by their ethics in a much more, well, for lack of a better way to put it, forceful manner, or driven manner, or independent manner. And so you can see there can be slight differences between those particular placements. On this course, I'm also going to talk to people about the symbolism of the nakshatras and how to keep your eyes out for the little things in your day-to-day existence, right? So for instance, if you, if your Ketu's in Bharani nakshatra, and you're going through your Ketu dasha, and you begin to see a lot of things going on with children, etc., because there can be a connection between Bharani nakshatra and children, or you begin to have a lot of connections with finding out things about death or thinking about death. Those things are trying to send you signals and make you take a look at things. Not that you're going to die or anything like that, but they're meant to make you look at some of the deeper processes of that nakshatra placement of the nodes. So this is going to be a 25-week webinar course. I believe I said 25 weeks. It's on the site. And it's 10% discount on registration for that between now and November 1st, and the link is in the window above. And I'll talk about some more stuff here in a moment. Let's catch up with some other questions. Okay. Okay, so again, people, just a reminder, I'm not here to read your horoscope for you, okay? I'm not here to really do that because I could only give you a general assessment, and then I'll give you that general assessment and you'll go, oh, then this is going to happen, and then you'll go away and it may or may not happen because I haven't looked at your whole horoscope, and then you'll be disappointed because you can't just make assessments about people's life based on one or two planets in their horoscope. You really need to see the entire horoscope, okay? I'm just reading some questions. Okay, somebody's saying, can you talk about Ketu and Mula Nakshatra if a person has it in their natal chart and they're running Ketu Mahadasha in the 7th? Right, let's talk about the concept of planets in their own nakshatras. It doesn't work the same as planets in their own signs, okay? Let's go there first, because people quite often think that if a planet's in its own nakshatra, it's going to make that planet strong. It doesn't work that way. It's a different concept with the nakshatras, right? So you'd really have to know the well-being of Ketu's dispositor in that particular sense. But what it can do is the person may be somewhat accustomed, perhaps, I'm just saying perhaps, to relationships dissolving. That may become a repetitive theme for them during that time. It doesn't mean your relationship's going to fall apart. It may be something like, I can see through all my relationships, or I get into a relationship with someone and I quickly see through who they are, and then I feel like I'm outgrowing the relationship. But a lot of other factors begin to come into the equation, so you can't really just make assessments based on one or two things, okay? I'm going to grab a quick drink of orange juice, and then I'll answer some more questions. Okay. What is the difference between combustion of a planet with close proximity to the sun and distant proximity to the sun? Let's talk about a couple of things with that, okay? First of all, a lot of people are prone to calculating combustion in an incorrect manner, okay? Because in Surya Siddhanta, it's stated that combustion should not be calculated. I'm not giving the exact translation. I'm kind of giving you the idea from Surya Siddhanta that combustion should not be calculated by how close together the planet is with the sun on the ecliptic, but instead combustion has to be calculated based upon local space related to where you live, right? So planets can be within a certain degree of the sun, and you can sometimes think, oh, well, that planet's going to be combust because it's within the required amount of degrees. But you may actually find that it's not, because combustion isn't related to the degrees on the ecliptic. It's related to the distance between those planets based upon local space. So that's one particular concept. But if a planet is actually combust, it's going to have the effects of a combust planet, regardless, right? It's always going to have those results. I would say that to a certain degree, there's a different concept, right? So not to a certain degree, there's a different concept. What I was going to say is, to a certain degree, the closer they are, the more intense it can become. But that can really best be understood by looking at one of the Lajatadiya Vastas, which are in chapter 45 of Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra. And there's a Lajatadiya Vasta called Kshobita, which happens when a planet is sharing the same Rashi as the sun, okay? So that planet, the closer it is to the sun, the more it's going to have its strength drained, and the more frustrated the individual can become. So that is something that can happen in that particular capacity. I'm going to use my microphone to illustrate a point, right? Here's a combust planet. We're going to say my microphone is the sun. Over here is the Earth. What's happening with combust planets is their rays can't reach the Earth because they can't get past the sun. So it represents an area of life that the individual is kind of incompatible with. And that's what tends to happen with combust planets, and the individual therefore begins to feel frustrated due to that, okay? So I also wanted to let people know that I have 3 new consultations that I've recently added to my website. And those consultations are available until 11 p.m. tonight at the link I'm typing into the chat window now, and at a 10% discount until 11 p.m. tonight using the code NEW at that link that I typed into the window. And those new consultations, and I've also added the intensive consultation to that as well. So if you want to book that, you can get that at a 10% discount too. But I'm doing a prosperity potential consultation, which basically identifies the potential for wealth in your horoscope and takes a look at the financial ups and downs in the approaching years, right? There's also a consultation called the Know Your Gifts and Use Them, or Know and Use Your Gifts is I think what it's actually called. And this identifies your unique talents, gives you the best path in terms of how to implement those talents, and equally the best timing for you to do so. Now, both of those consultations are $149, but with the discount, it's somewhere like $125 to $130, something like that. And then there is the Personal Celestial Guides consultation that is used to determine the planet that can help you with your spiritual evolution, and equally the planet that can help you with material difficulties. And after identifying those planets, I give you mantras to work with and affirmations to work with for the nakshatras those planets are in. That's a half-hour consultation, the last one, and it's $95. So all of these have a 10% discount at the link that I typed into the window. I'll type it again. And also the intensive consultation is available at a 10% discount as well. Okay, let's see what other questions we have. How do you see death of parents in one's childhood, for instance? I think you might be following up on an earlier question. Well, there can be a lot of things that lead to that. So when individuals first get into astrology, quite often the thing that people gravitate towards is, oh, well, if I see the 12th Lord or the 8th Lord with an indicator for parents, then that can mean death of that parent. And it may or it may not. It may or it may not, right? And so, but that can be one of the things that leads to it, like potentially the moon with the 8th or the 12th Lord, or it could just mean difficulties with your mother, or the moon with, or the sun with the 8th or the 12th Lord, that can do it. All sorts of things can do it, or even with the Marika indicators, like the 2nd and 7th house indicators, that can do it. But you need to see a lot of other factors confirming it rather than just those things. Right? And that's the thing to understand. There are also these things that are called Karaka Arishta yogas, and they have to be qualified in a certain way, but you can generally find how a planet, like for instance, if you had the sun, and that sun indicating father was hemmed in between a lot of cruel planets in the house before and the house after, and those planets were exerting a lot of harmful energy on that. And I know you're going, well, if it's hemmed, it's going to do that anyway. But no, we have a way of mathematically quantifying this. Then it can mean like death of a parent too. That's another thing that can do it. So things like Karaka Arishta yogas can do it as well. Oh, well, no, I mean, you know, but somebody just said I should be holding a sign that says I'm not here to read your chart. That'll save me some time. No, it's okay. I'm used to it. And I understand people would like that, but really, there's more than just the financial reason that I'm doing that for. The main reason is because I can't accurately assess your horoscope just based on your Rashi chart, because I'm just going to give you some general assessments. And that's astrology taken to the level of 50 to 60% accuracy, whereas I'd much prefer to do higher accuracy with that than make a person think something is going to happen, either to only be let down or to dread something, right? And so that's why I don't like doing that. But you can always schedule a consultation, and then I can look at it fully for you, right? Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, let's see. What could be the behavior of Sun and Saturn's Rashi? In example, Capricorn and Aquarius. Will there be fight between father and son? No, not always. Not always, That's the whole thing. There's a lot of other things. I know you're kind of saying that because of the parent-child relationship between the sun being in Saturn's sign, but it's not really that it's going to make the person have a fight with their father. It doesn't work that way. Things that create that are indications that are shown in the Rashi chart as well as the Dwadashamsha chart. And those are the things that you have to look at. Okay. So another thing that's going on is I'm teaching in January another course. And yes, there is a 10% discount on that one as well. And this course is on how to predict using trigger transits. So what we're going to do on this particular course is we're going to work with Vimshottari Dasha down to about 3 levels, which will narrow an event window quite often to sometimes within a few months, if you're lucky, within a few weeks. And then we're going to use 2 other Jaimini dashas in order to narrow that event window down to maybe a week or a week and a half. And then we're going to use these things called trigger transits to come along and learn how to predict events to within a few days' time. This is an excellent system of prediction. Trigger transits, if you don't know what those are, I'm going to give you a little bit of information on that, but I can't give you the full concept because it works a little bit differently when you're dealing with Rashi aspects, okay? So when you have 2 planets transiting each other, whether that's a transit that's going on in the sky, or whether that's a transit from a planet in the sky to the natal chart, if those respective planets are in the same 3-degree, 20-minute section of the sky, they create a trigger transit. And I don't mean 3 degrees, 20 minutes of orb. I mean the same 3 degrees, 20 minutes of a sign, which is the same thing as what's called a navamsa, but a different concept than the navamsa chart, okay? It's just a 1/9 division. So for instance, if you had a planet in Libra in your natal chart, and that planet was between 0 to 3 degrees, 20 minutes of Libra, and you have the sun, say, directly opposite in Aries, transiting between 0 to 3 degrees, 20 minutes of Aries, that will create a trigger transit. If you had, like, let's say that very same planet between 3 degrees, 20 minutes to 640 of Libra, and another planet, like let's say Saturn, between 320 to 640 of Aries, that also creates a trigger transit. And we look for these involving the graha aspects, trines, oppositions. Obviously, that's the same thing as a graha aspect. And you can do it with Rashi aspects too, but there's a different system that you work with it on, right? And so we're going to be teaching how to work with these particular transits. There's also a concrete prediction level 1 course that goes more deeply into the Vimshottari techniques, but any Vimshottari technique will work with this transit system. In addition to that, there's also another video course on working with Jaimini Rashi dashas in order to predict concretely. And those 2 video courses are available at a discount for anybody who registers for this course. And this course that starts in January is 10% off at the link I'm typing into the window, and you need to use the discount code EARLY when you go to register, and that'll give you the 10% discount. That discount's available until the 1st of November. Okay, somebody asked, am I going to continue the Nakshatra Sutra series? Let me explain some things about some of these series that I do, and I know that everybody gets really into their own particular series, but what happens is I'll do these, and I start getting, like, lot less views to my channel when I do those videos, right? And so I like doing those videos, but I need to see more visits to those videos, really, because otherwise there's not really much point in me continuing to do them other than satisfying a few people here and there. So for instance, if I do a transit video, I can get, like, hundreds of views to a video. And if I do a video on, like, a particular technique or talking about the Nakshatra Sutras, I get maybe 100 to 200 views. So, I like doing them, but it's like I need to see some commitment to people watching them. And, I know that sounds kind of difficult, but I do, sadly, so it's not that I'm going to stop doing them, but I just have to do them at a time when there's time to get around to doing them. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. Somebody said they have a general question about the moon. Go ahead and ask your general question about the moon. Okay. Okay, so let's see what we've got going on here. How do planets behave in GaN Dontoh of fire signs? First of all, in my opinion, and I'm going to go, like I do quite often, rubber stamp, this is my opinion, which doesn't mean that somebody else's opinion is wrong, right? And that my opinion's the only opinion in the world. So I want to say that first, right? Because people really like to do a lot of you're wrong and I'm right. No, 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 no. I'm right. You're wrong. No, no, no. Well, guess what? That just creates a lot of division. When people do that, they're both wrong. Because when it boils down to it, nobody has the ironclad, perfect system of techniques, and everybody else's techniques are wrong. Okay, so I'm going to say that first of all, and I'm going to duck while people throw things at me, right? But going a little more deeply into that particular concept, let me go back to your questions. GaN Dontoh is quite often blown way out of proportion, in my opinion. Okay, because if you have a planet in the GaN Dontoh section of a nakshatra and you've got a strong Mercury, it's not really going to be an issue, because a strong Mercury gives the discernment that's necessary to sort through what's going on with that transitional energy of the GaN Dontoh point. Because what's happening with GaN Dontoh nakshatras is there's a shift of the gunas from Rajasic energy to Tamasic energy with Ashlesha nakshatra, from Tamasic energy to Sattvic energy with Jyeshta nakshatra, and from Sattvic energy back to Rajasic energy with Revati nakshatra. So you really need to understand that in connection with Mercury. And to be quite fair, that planet in GaN Dontoh, if there's a weak Mercury, there's going to be problems in that nakshatra, even if it's not in its GaN Dontoh point. So that's really the best way to understand the concept of GaN Dontoh. Okay. Can GaN Dontoh be viewed to the house points like the 1st and the 12th house, not by sign? I'm not really sure what you're asking, but one thing I will say about nakshatras is they're not bound to the zodiac. Nakshatras are a separate division of the sky that are joined together with the ecliptic, the zodiac, that is, for horoscope interpretation. But they're a completely separate division of the sky, okay? And that's something I think that a lot of people miss, and they want to interpret nakshatras as per the sign, when really you need to interpret nakshatras as per the nakshatra, okay? So again, a special reminder, 3 different consultations that are brand spanking new: the Prosperity Potential Consultation, and the Know and Use Your Gifts consultation, and the Personal Celestial Guides consultation. Well, obviously the Prosperity Potential Consultation identifies the potential for wealth in the horoscope and the upcoming ups and down periods. Know and Use Your Gifts identifies your talents, tells you how best to use them and when to do so. And the Personal Celestial Guides gives you special planets to work with for the entirety of your life to help you spiritually evolve and to help with any material difficulty that you might be experiencing. All those are available at a 10% discount until 11 p.m. today, along with my intensive consultation, which is also available at a 10% discount and contains a karmic analysis. In order to take advantage of that, you need to go to my services page, which I'm just now entering into the chat window, and use the discount code NEW when you schedule there. Okay. In addition to that, a really, 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 okay, I'll stop. A really, really, really intense and in-depth course on Rahu and Ketu through the nakshatras. 10% discount on that course if you register before the 1st of November using the discount code, which I'll type in the window here in a moment because it's a confusing one, right? The discount code NODALNAK at the link I just typed into the window. And we're going to go into depth on what it means to have the nodes in certain nakshatras, the symbolism that it's likely to create in your life, and how to take that symbolism and work on yourself, because you're getting the signs and signals from the universe to do so. There's some really powerful information on this course, and I'm really excited to share it with you. And if you register before November 1st, you get a 10% discount. Okay, so we're going to go into some more questions, and I'll share some other things that I've got coming up here in just a moment. Okay, so I want to say to people, the more precise you can be with your questions, the better. because if you're coming here and you're going, say some words about the destiny point in a chart, well, I might just say, well, the destiny point, if you mean Bhrigu Bindu, is the midpoint between Rahu and the moon, right? And it is somewhat defining of a person, and powerful transits to that point do really have a tendency to change things, but I'm not sure if that's really what you're asking. And so that's why I'm going to that level with it, because that's about the level to which I work with Bhrigu Bindu, because quite often I don't really have as deep of a need to do otherwise, especially in relation to things like career, because I use a really in-depth system in order to determine the person's career. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here in the chat window up above or down below or wherever it might be being typed. Okay. What is a nakshatra? A nakshatra is one of the 27 divisions, sometimes 28, dependent upon which system you work with, of the heavens, not the ecliptic. A division of the ecliptic is the zodiac. So 12, a division of the ecliptic by 12 is what the zodiac is, right? The nakshatras are a division of the sphere of the stars, which as the Earth is rotating on its axis, like this thing, tends to move east to west, whereas the path of the sun in relation to the zodiac, in terms of the ecliptic is what I meant, is moving north and south. So those are two separate divisions. The nakshatras, what they do is they indicate how an individual is going to grow the consciousness of a particular planet, right? It'll tell, like, it'll give a lot of the hints about the lessons of that particular planet, okay? Some words about Shatabhishak Nakshatra. How about you come back to me with things that you want to know about Shatabhishak Nakshatra, rather than just some words about it, okay? It might be a little bit better. You might find you get better information from me. I'm not meaning to challenge everybody, but you just get better information from it. Why do they say Leo moon, the 5th house, is ruled by the 12th house for Leo ascendant? I don't understand that. I didn't know they did say that for Leo moon, the 5th house is ruled by the 12th house. I'm not really sure what that's about. Okay, so you might, if you can clarify your question, I might be able to answer it. Okay, let's see if we've got any other questions here. So please feel free to ask any nakshatra related, any related questions you may have. Do I view the 3rd house as the Dushtana? No, the 6th, the 8th, and the 12th are the Dushtanas. Sometimes the 3rd and the 11th are considered what are called secondary Dushtanas. They create tension and difficulty, but that tension and difficulty tends to get better with time. The 3rd is also one of the Upachaya houses, which means that things improve over time, but they can create tension and difficulty, but not to the same level as the 6th, 8th, and 12th. Okay, so I know that some people have a system of saying that you should look at the navamsa chart after you're 35. I think that that's the technique of certain people. I generally find for myself, and this is not me saying anything bad about somebody else's technique, so please do not misunderstand me. From my perspective, I feel you should look at the navamsa chart anytime, not just after you're 35. You look at the navamsa chart to indicate purpose in a person's life, the amount of meaning that they're getting from the experiences that they're going through, whether their life has meaning in general. And yes, of course, you can look at it for marriage, but I don't really myself just use the navamsa chart after the person's 35, nor do I kind of, if somebody comes to me who's over 35, I don't go, I'm not going to look at your Rashi chart. I'm going to look at your navamsa chart. But so that's not really my approach to it. So that's probably as clear of information as I can give you about that. So let's see what else we've got going on here. Okay. How do you relate nakshatras to Vimshotri to predict? Okay. So let's talk about that for a little bit. So first of all, Vimshotri dasha is created by the nakshatras, which I think you may already know. So for instance, if you're born with the moon in Bharani nakshatra, your dasha system will start with Venus dasha, right? That's how we determine with Vimshotri dasha what dasha you're starting with, okay? There's lots of techniques that can be used to predict with the nakshatras. I have my own particular techniques, one that is based on taking the planet that's in the nakshatra and equally the dispositor of the nakshatra, looking at the deep tadiya vasta, which for the most part is related to the dignity, or if the planet's joined a cruel planet, that's part of it too. But I take the deep tadiya vasta of the planet, and I also look at something called the baladiya vasta, and I look at something called the Jagradadiya Vasta, and I combine this into a score, divide it by 3, and that gives me an idea of the productivity of that nakshatra or the planet that's in the nakshatra. I use that on a really deep level, and I also tend to take it and integrate it with other things like the Shayanadiya Vastas and the Varga deities in order to get deeper meaning from the horoscope. In addition to that, I like using house cusp nakshatras because that gives me an idea. Say, for instance, if I'm looking at the 4th house and the 4th house is in Punarvasu nakshatra, and somebody's asking me if they're going to be able to sell their house, Punarvasu is kind of connected to a house, so that gives me a little bit more information as to the potential for things like that. So that's as clear of an answer as I can give you to that, but other people will probably have different ways of connecting nakshatras to Vimshotri, right? But if you're in a Vimshotri dasha, like let's say of Jupiter, if you've got a planet in Jupiter nakshatras, that planet will get activated. Equally, Jupiter, whatever nakshatra it's in, will get activated. Planets joining Jupiter will get activated, and so on and so forth, okay? Okay, Kritika in the Lagna D9 Navamsa. All right, so this is my opinion on looking at nakshatras in Varga charts, okay? And I, see other people working with their systems, which generally involve changing the nakshatra in different Varga charts. And I'm sure that works for them. That's not how I work with them. My philosophy is if you have a planet in Kritika in the Rashi chart, then regardless of what Rashi it goes into in the Varga charts, D9, D12, whatever, like for instance, if you have a planet in Kritika and you find that it's in Scorpio in the Dashamsha chart, that planet's still in Kritika because nakshatras are related to astronomical concepts, and because they're related to the fixed stars, which are astronomical by nature, my philosophy is that it's better, find it more, what's the phrase I'm looking for? I find it more accurate and it feels more appropriate to me to not put it in a different nakshatra in a different Varga chart. I hope that makes sense to you. So it would tend to stay in Kritika nakshatra regardless of where it's placed, all right? Okay, so let's see some other questions that people might have. And before I go into those other questions, you're all late, right? You're all getting here and it's like, 15 minutes before I'm going to stop. You got late. Okay. So here is something that I'm wanting to share with people. First of all, astrological services, especially the 3 new astrological services, are all available at a 10% discount until 11 p.m. tonight at the link I just typed into the chat window using the discount code NEW. That's the prosperity potential consultation. For all of you who keep asking me, do I have the capacity to be a millionaire? Well, that's the thing that can help you to find that out. And it can also help to identify the financial ups and downs. Know and use your gifts consultation, which can identify your unique talents, which you may or may not use as a profession, which is why it's not the chosen vocation consultation. That's a different one. Know and use your gifts, when to implement them, and equally how best to implement them. That's another 1-hour consultation, 10% discount on that. And your personal celestial guides consultation, which identifies your spiritual helper planet and your material plane helper planet and gives you affirmations and mantras for each of those. All of those are 10% off today only, and the intensive consultation as well. Also, my new Rahu and Ketu through the Nakshatras course is available for early registration at a 10% discount. I really recommend going over to the page and at least reading some information on it in terms of all the unique stuff that's going to be on this course, which I have not really seen anywhere else on a webinar course on Rahu and Ketu. So I'm really excited about it. You can register either by semester or payment in full and get that 10% discount at the link I'm typing into the chat window now. Okay, what is a house cusp? A house cusp is a specifically defined degree point which relates to a house. In Western astrology and Vedic astrology, those two things can get approached differently, okay? So in Western astrology, you may have the third house cusp here, and you may have the fourth house cusp here. In Western astrology, they would say the space in between is the third house. When we apply this concept to Vedic astrology, it's different. So for instance, if you have the third equal house as Libra, right? Libra creates the boundaries of the house. But within Libra, within that third house is Libra, which is the third equal house, you might have the fifth house cusp, which is a specifically defined degree point. So that would mean that Venus would be responsible for the agendas of the third and the fifth houses, right? That's generally how I work with that. How can we predict one's profession, sir? I tend to use a system of from Jaimini astrology combined with nakshatras. If you go to my website and register for the chosen vocation consultation, then I can take a look at that for you. Okay, let's see what we've got going on. There are a total of 9 planets in Vedic astrology, so how different nakshatras play their own role and when they are going to play a role in our life. Well, they will tend to play their role, like for instance, if you're in a dasha of Jupiter and you've got planets in a nakshatra related to Jupiter, then those planets will play their role. Equally, Jupiter and the nakshatra it's in, regardless of whether it's in a Jupiter nakshatra during Jupiter dasha, would get activated. So if you had Jupiter in Kritika nakshatra, Kritika would get activated then. And so that's generally how it works. I'm teaching a nakshatra technique course this coming March, and you can register for that. And a lot of that stuff would be covered in that course, okay? Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, I'm not going to give predictions about your horoscope based on your Rashi chart and just your navamsa chart. I need to know so many different things in order to do that. And if you're asking me to predict on the spot for you here in like 2 minutes time without going in and thoroughly examining your chart and all the different implications, then you're courting trouble, really. Because really, my opinion is when people are just kind of going, oh, sure, I'll read that for you. Sure, they stand a chance of being 50% accurate. And that's why people are generally a lot of times okay with those predictions. But I'd much rather be like 70 to 80% accurate because it's better for my reputation, for one thing. Okay. And I would rather just not give an inaccurate prediction. Okay. What's a good yoga or planetary placement for telepathy, in my opinion? A retrograde Mercury can help with that, but yogas always have to be qualified. And I really can't stress that enough. You have to qualify yogas. It's not just that yogas automatically create the thing they're associated with. They have to have the strength to create that thing. Okay. Okay, people who are asking predictive questions about their own horoscope, and like the person said earlier, I really should hold up a sign saying, I'm not here to predict for you, okay? I'm not going to do that, okay? Just so everybody knows. If a chart has no planets in Kendra or Trikona houses, does that chart really perform bad? The Rashi chart is just 1/16 of what Parashara recommends we work on for a person, right? So the Rashi chart is, sure, the rest of the Varga charts are taken from the Rashi chart. So the Rashi chart is vitally important, but it's not the complete end result. So you might have planets and angles in other Varga charts, and they're stronger in those areas. You may not feel that they're as strong overall on your life path, but it doesn't mean that the path is completely destroyed, okay? Okay, so let's see what else we've got here. in terms of other questions that people might have. I probably have another 5 minutes or so. Okay. Here's another thing too. If anybody is interested, like those of you who are asking me astrology questions, if you're interested in booking with me, go to my website, send me an email, right, through the website. There's a contact me page. And until 11 p.m. tonight, but I'm only doing this tonight, I'll give you a 10% discount on the consultation of your choice, even if it's not one of the new consultations, okay? So if you're really wanting me to look at something for you, go there and schedule it through my site, okay? Okay, so how do we judge Parivartana Yoga for Mercury in Libra and Venus in Virgo? A lot of that depends on the houses associated with those, but again, you're probably asking me in relation to your own horoscope. And always with yogas, they have to be qualified with Ishta and Kashta, in my opinion, Shubha and Ashubha Phala, in my opinion, and Shubha and Ashubha Digbala. I don't have that information about your horoscope off the top of my head, so I can't really tell you how positive the effects will be or how destructive the effects will be, unless I have that information, okay? So I'm reading somebody's question. That's why I'm... Third house is the intelligence we apply to things. Sixth house can be understood on some levels as the challenge that we face when applying that intelligence, okay? Pada means foot, or, different, best way to understand it in relation to nakshatras is sections. I really, really, really recommend, Tamashri, that you take one of the nakshatra courses. Fifth house is also intelligence. Fifth house is third house is intelligence. Fifth house is taking that intelligence and applying it to creative solutions, whereas the sixth house is the challenges that you may face in doing so. And the more you have to think on the spot, and much like Theo Ernst was saying, use your logic on a certain level, okay? So I'm going to run through the list of upcoming things I've got going on and maybe take one more question. So if you're all bored with me promoting myself, which is what keeps me able, by the way, to be able to come on here and give you free stuff, is the fact that I promote myself and it enables me to earn money as an astrologer, because if I didn't earn money as an astrologer, I wouldn't be able to come on here and give you stuff for free, okay? So let's take a look and see. We've got the Rahu and Ketu course. That starts in January, but there's a 10% discount on that if you register prior to November 1st at the link I just typed into the chat window. This is Rahu and Ketu through the nakshatras, a very profound course. Definitely recommend, even if you're not going to be able to immediately register, that you go and check out the page. There's also a concrete prediction with trigger transits course that starts in January as well, but it's also open to a 10% discount. And sorry, I put the wrong discount code for the nakshatra course. That discount code should be what I'm going to type into the window now, which is nodal nakshatra. There's just nodal nak is what it is, okay? So disregard early. But for the concrete prediction course with trigger transits, that is going to be, where did that go? I lost it. Okay. All right, let's see if I type control. There we go. That did it. Right. So the trigger transits course I'm typing into the chat window here. That is able to be registered for at a 10% discount using the code early on Monday. Those of you who keep asking me about Mercury retrograde coming up, a group session on Mercury retrograde, $59 if you register and come to the course. I'll take a look at the transit in relation to your own personal horoscope using dashas, nakshatras, the whole shebang. If you register for that, it's $59. It's on Monday at 7 p.m. London time. And I think there's one more thing that I didn't tell you anything about. There's two more things, but I want to tell you about this one, which is by special request of people who take my other courses. They asked me if I would hold a course talking about when to use which technique, right? Like when's the best time to use yogas, or when's the best time to use the Lajatati Avastas, or when's the best time to use the Baladi Avastas or Jaimini Dashas. When do you use these things? And it's also a general question and answer course. This is a 4-week course. It's only $150 for the 4-week webinar course. And it starts in mid-November. And one last thing, again, a reminder about my astrological services, especially the new ones, the Prosperity Potential Consultation and the Know and Use Your Gifts consultation and the Personal Celestial Guides consultation and the Intensive consultation, all available at a 10% discount using the discount code NEW. And as I said, for today only, if you go there and you're wanting to book a consultation with me, but you don't, it's not one of those, you want to book a different one, all you have to do is email me and let me know and we'll set you up. Okay. Sanjeev, if you read back earlier in the post, I don't just believe that the navamsa is activated after 35. Okay. That's just my opinion. I think the navamsa is always active in the person's life. Okay. I know it may differ from other people's opinions, but that's generally how I tend to work with it. All right, let's see if I've got maybe one more question. Okay, let's see. I may have already kind of answered this. Are singing skills related to the second and the third house? A little bit of both, really. Yeah. And especially having the sun in a certain position from your Atmakaraka, right? And I can't really tell you which position because I need to teach you Jaimini techniques, like when to read reverse and when to read forward. Okay. So thanks a lot for attending, everybody. Please go visit the links if you're interested in anything that I shared here. And until next time, please take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.